March 15th, 2020. That's the date that ended my life's work. Not the date I closed the restaurant. That came later. But March 15th was when I knew, standing in my kitchen at 5 a.m., watching the governor's press conference, that 20 years of building something I loved was about to disappear. My name is Marco Rossi. I'm 52 years old, and until the pandemic, I owned Rossi's, an Italian restaurant in Brooklyn that had been feeding our neighborhood for 2 decades. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't trendy. It was just good food, made with recipes my grandfather brought from Naples, served by people who felt like family, to customers who became friends. And in less than 3 months, COVID-19 killed it. Not slowly, not with warning, just gone. Let me take you back to before the world changed, before everything I'd built disappeared, back to when Rossi's was alive. February 2020. The restaurant was having one of its best years. We'd survived recessions, competition from newer places, changing neighborhoods. 20 years in the restaurant business is an eternity. Most places close within 5 years. We'd made it to 20. Saturday nights, we'd have a wait list of 45 minutes. Families celebrating birthdays, couples on dates, regulars who came every week and ordered the same thing. My wife Angela managed the front of house like a conductor leading an orchestra. Our daughter Sophia waited tables during college breaks. Our son Tony had just started learning to cook in the kitchen, maybe carrying on the family tradition. The staff was my second family. Carmen had been with us for 17 years, started as a dishwasher, now ran the line. Luis, our head waiter, 15 years. Maria handled prep, 12 years. These weren't just employees. They were people whose kids I'd watched grow up, whose lives were woven into the fabric of the restaurant. The building itself was an old brownstone basement on Smith Street. We'd renovated it in 1999, poured every dollar we had, and plenty we'd borrowed into making it work. Exposed brick walls, mismatched wooden tables Angela found at estate sales, string lights, photos of my grandparents in Naples covering one wall. It felt like someone's home because it was ours. Our signature dish was my grandfather's pasta alla genovese. Not the pesto one, the Neapolitan version with onions braised for hours until they turned into sweet golden sauce. We'd sell 40 orders on a good night. People would come back specifically for it, bring friends, tell us it reminded them of their nana's cooking. I'd get to the restaurant at 6 a.m. every day, start the stocks, prep the sauce bases, check deliveries. Angela would arrive at 10 to handle bookkeeping and prep for service. Staff came in at 2 for family meal. We'd all eat together before the chaos started. Dinner service began at 5 and ran until 11, sometimes midnight on weekends. It was exhausting. It was all-consuming. It was everything. February turned to March. We started hearing about this virus in China, then Italy, then Washington State. But New York felt invincible. The city that never sleeps, too busy to shut down. We took precautions, cleaned more, but the restaurant stayed packed. March 10th, I remember clearly. Tuesday night. We did 73 covers. Good for a Tuesday. Some couple celebrating an anniversary ordered champagne, stayed late talking. Luis joked that they'd probably get engaged there next year, make it a tradition. March 13th, Friday. The energy shifted. Instead of the usual weekend buzz, people seemed nervous. We did 48 covers, half of what we'd normally do. Angela and I looked at each other during service, both thinking the same thing, but not saying it yet. March 15th, Sunday morning. I woke up at 4 a.m., couldn't sleep. Went downstairs to the kitchen, made coffee, turned on the news. Governor Cuomo was giving a press conference. All restaurants in New York would close for dine-in service, effective Monday night. Takeout and delivery only. I stood there in my kitchen at home, coffee getting cold in my hand, and felt something break inside me. Rossi's wasn't built for takeout. We were an experience. The atmosphere, the service, the feeling of sitting at those mismatched tables with red wine and bread. You couldn't put that in a styrofoam container. Angela came downstairs, saw my face. It's happening, isn't it? Yeah, tomorrow's our last night of regular service. After that, it's takeout only. For how long? They're saying 2 weeks. Maybe a month. We both knew it would be longer. We'd been watching Italy shut down. We weren't stupid, but we didn't say it out loud yet. I went to the restaurant at noon that Sunday, called a staff meeting. All 18 employees crammed into the dining room. Some of them had worked every Sunday for a decade. They knew something was wrong. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, I said. The governor is shutting down dining rooms tomorrow night. We can do takeout and delivery, but I don't know if that'll be enough to keep everyone employed. I'll do everything I can, but I need you to prepare for the possibility of reduced hours or temporary layoffs. Carmen, who'd been with me since he was 22, now had 3 kids. How temporary? I don't know. They're saying weeks. Could be longer. The restaurant was silent. These people depended on this income. Tips, wages, health insurance. I'd just told them it might disappear. We did that last Sunday service, March 15th, 2020. 52 covers. People knew it was the last night of normal, at least for a while. Some regulars came to say goodbye to their favorite place. Mrs. Chen, who came every Thursday for chicken parm, showed up on a Sunday and cried, hugging Angela. "You'll reopen," she said. "You have to. This neighborhood needs you." I wanted to believe her. Monday we started takeout only. The numbers were devastating. Sunday we'd done 52 dinners. Monday, takeout only, we did 8. 8 orders in an entire night. Our rent was $7,800 a month. Food costs, utilities, minimal staff. We needed to do at least 80 orders a day just to break even on operating costs, not even touching the debt service on our equipment loans or paying ourselves. We did 8 orders. Tuesday, 11 orders. Wednesday, 15. By Friday, I was looking at the numbers, and Angela and I both knew. This wasn't sustainable. Not even close. The first conversation about closing happened on March 22nd, 1 week after the shutdown. Angela and I sat in the empty dining room at midnight after a service that had brought in $340. Our food costs alone had been $200. We'd paid 3 staff members. Lost money. Again. "We can't keep doing this," Angela said. "We're bleeding." "I know." "How long can we last?" I'd already run the numbers. "If we keep operating like this, maybe 6 weeks before we can't make payroll. If we shut down completely, put everyone on unemployment, we could stretch our savings, and the PPP loan maybe 3 months. But then what? Maybe it'll be over by then. Maybe we can reopen." Neither of us believed it. The hardest part wasn't the money. It was the people. I had to lay off my staff. People who'd been with me for years, who'd become family. I had to tell Carmen, who had 3 kids, that I couldn't pay him anymore. Tell Luis his tips were gone. Tell Maria we couldn't afford prep work when we were only doing 10 orders a day. I did it in waves. First the front of house staff, since we didn't need servers for takeout. Luis understood, but I watched his face fall. He was 53 years old. Where was he going to find another job in a pandemic? Then most of the kitchen staff. Kept just Carmen and 1 other guy to handle the minimal takeout. Everyone else on unemployment. They were understanding, but I saw the fear, the uncertainty. These were people with families, rent, bills, and I was taking away their income. Every conversation broke me a little more. April came. The city that never sleeps was asleep. Boarded up, silent. Smith Street, usually bustling, looked like a ghost town. Other restaurants were closing permanently. Every week, another one. Places that had been there longer than us. Places we'd considered competition, friends, all of us fighting to survive, all of us losing. We tried everything to keep Rossi's alive. Created a family meal delivery service. Offered pasta making kits people could finish at home. Started a GoFundMe that raised $8,000 from loyal customers, which helped but wasn't nearly enough. The neighborhood rallied, but the neighborhood was also broke and scared. The PPP loan came through in late April. $52,000. It felt like a lifeline. Except the terms required using it for payroll and rent to get forgiveness. I brought back as much staff as I could, even though we still weren't doing enough business to justify it. Paid them to essentially sit around a dying restaurant because that's what the loan required. The money bought us time. Not hope, just time. May. Still no indication when we could reopen for dining. The virus was raging. New York was the epicenter. People were dying. And I was watching my life's work die too. Angela and I would go to the restaurant each day out of habit. There was barely anything to do. Answer the phone for the occasional takeout order. Clean equipment that wasn't being used. Stare at empty tables and remember what it felt like when they were full. One afternoon in late May, I stood in the dining room alone. The light coming through the windows hit the pictures of my grandparents on the wall. My grandfather in his restaurant in Naples in 1952. My grandmother in her kitchen. They'd survived war, immigration, starting over in a new country. They'd built something from nothing, and I was going to be the one who let it die. I called my dad. He was 81, living in Florida, hadn't been involved in the restaurant for years, but it had been his father's recipes, his memories. "Pop, I think I have to close the restaurant." Long silence. Then, "How bad is it?" "The PPP money runs out in July. We're not making enough to survive. Rent is due every month whether we're open or not. I can't keep bleeding money and hope. I think it's over." 20 years, Marco. "I know. Your grandfather's recipes." "I know, Pop. I know." He was quiet. Then, "You did good, son. 20 years in this business is an accomplishment. The pandemic, that's not your fault. You built something good. That matters." I cried on the phone with my 81-year-old father, both of us grieving a restaurant that had connected 3 generations of our family. June arrived. The PPP money was almost gone. We'd made it to the end of the loan forgiveness period. We'd kept staff on payroll as required. Now that deadline was passed, and the math was simple. We could maybe afford 2 more months of rent with our remaining savings. But we'd be draining every dollar we had, both personal and business, for a restaurant that had no reopening date and was averaging 12 takeout orders a day. Angela and I had the conversation we'd been avoiding for 3 months. "We have to close," she said. "Officially. Permanently." "I know. If we don't, we'll lose everything. The house. Our savings. We'll go into personal bankruptcy trying to save something that's already dead." "I know." "So when?" "End of the month. Give customers a chance to say goodbye. Give staff notice. End of June, we close for good." Saying it out loud made it real. 20 years. Gone. We announced it on June 15th. Posted on social media, told our regulars, let the staff know. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of comments. People sharing memories. First dates at Rossi's. Birthday celebrations. Anniversaries. Kids who'd grown up eating our chicken parm. Families whose traditions included Sunday dinner at our tables. Mrs. Chen wrote, "This breaks my heart. Rossi's was more than a restaurant. It was home. That's what killed me. It had been home. For us, for our staff, for our neighborhood. And home was closing. The last 2 weeks of June were surreal. We did special final menus. People came for takeout just to have one last meal. Former employees stopped by to say goodbye. Carmen came with his kids, introduced them to the kitchen where he'd worked for 17 years, showed them the walk-in, the grill, his station. June 30th, 2020. Our last day. We decided to do it right. One final dinner service, invited staff, regular customers, family. Cooked every signature dish. The dining room was still closed to the public, but we set up tables outside on the sidewalk. 30 people spread out, masked, distanced, gathering to say goodbye to a place that had meant something to all of us. I made the pasta alla genovese. 40 portions. Same recipe my grandfather had made in Naples 70 years ago. Carmen worked the line beside me like old times. Angela served alongside Luis. My kids were there. My dad flew up from Florida against every pandemic guideline, said he needed to see it end. We ate at midnight after everyone left. The five of us, my family, sitting at a table in the empty restaurant. Angela had opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving for the 20th anniversary celebration that had never happened. "To Rossi's," she said, raising her glass. "To 20 years, I added. We drank. We cried. And at 2 a.m., I locked the door for the last time. The next morning, I woke up and didn't know who I was. For 20 years, I'd been Marco, owner of Rossi's. Chef, boss, neighborhood fixture. Now I was just Marco, 52 years old, with no restaurant, no identity, no idea what came next. July 2020 was the darkest month of my life. The restaurant was gone, but the debt wasn't. Equipment loans, still owed $68,000. Line of credit for renovations 5 years ago, $43,000 remaining. The lease, we'd negotiated an early termination, but still owed 3 months, $23,000. Personal savings we'd poured in trying to keep things going, $70,000 gone. We owed nearly $200,000 for a business that no longer existed. I couldn't get out of bed some days. Angela would try to talk to me about next steps, job hunting, bankruptcy, anything. I'd just stare at the ceiling. I was 52 years old. I'd spent 2 decades building one thing. Starting over felt impossible. My identity had been the restaurant. Without it, who was I? August. Angela forced me to see a therapist. Dr. Martinez, a kind woman who specialized in grief and loss. She said I wasn't just grieving a business. I was grieving an identity, a community, a purpose. The pandemic didn't just take your restaurant, she said. It took your role in the world. You were the chef, the boss, the person who fed the neighborhood. Now you're searching for who you are without those roles. She was right. But understanding it didn't make it hurt less. September arrived. 5 months since we closed. I'd sent out 50 job applications, heard back from 3, had 1 interview, didn't get it. At 52, in a pandemic, with 20 years of experience running my own place, I was overqualified for line cook positions and underqualified for corporate restaurant management. I was stuck, drowning. The debt piling up, savings depleted, no income, no direction. Then, on September 18th, I got a call that would change everything. Not from a job, not from a bank. From a guy named David Chen, who'd been a regular at Rossi's for 15 years. "Marco, I heard you closed. I'm so sorry. Listen, I have a crazy idea, and I want to run it by you. You got time for coffee?" I met David at a coffee shop in Park Slope, both of us masked, sitting outside in the September afternoon. He'd been coming to Rossi's every Thursday for 15 years. Software guy, never married, would sit at the bar, order the Genovese and whatever Angela recommended for wine. He'd become one of those regulars you looked forward to seeing. "Marco, I've been thinking about this since you closed," David said. "The restaurant industry is changing. Ghost kitchens are exploding. No dining room, no overhead, just cooking for delivery. What if you started a ghost kitchen using your recipes?" Ghost kitchen. I'd heard the term. Restaurants that only existed for delivery apps. No tables, no ambiance, no experience. Everything I'd hated about pandemic takeout, but as an actual business model. "That's not a restaurant," I said. "That's just cooking in a warehouse." "Exactly. Which means no $7,800 rent, no front-of-house staff, no tables and chairs and atmosphere to maintain. Just food. Your food." The thing that made Rossi's special wasn't the exposed brick, Marco. It was the pasta alla Genovese. It was your grandfather's recipes. That translates to delivery. "I don't have money to start anything. I'm drowning in debt from the last business. I know, that's why I want to invest. I'll put up $50,000 to get you started. Rent a commercial kitchen space, buy supplies, get on the delivery apps. You cook, I handle the business side, the apps, the logistics. We split it 60-40, you getting the bigger piece because it's your recipes and talent. I stared at him. Why would you do this? Because I'm tired of eating garbage delivery food during this pandemic. Because your cooking deserves to exist. And because I have money sitting in the bank doing nothing, and I believe in this. He pulled out a folder. I've done the math. Ghost kitchens have way lower overhead. If you can do 30 orders a day, you're profitable. You were doing 70 covers on a normal Tuesday at Rossi's. The demand is there. The business model just has to change. I took the folder home, spent 2 days looking at his numbers, his projections, his research on ghost kitchens. Angela read through it too. He's serious, she said. And the numbers actually work. Much lower risk than a full restaurant. It's not the same. It's cooking in a kitchen box, putting food in containers, handing it to a Uber driver. Where's the soul in that? The soul is in the food, Marco. It always was. The restaurant was beautiful, but people came back for the Genovese, for the braciole, for your grandmother's tiramisu. That doesn't need a dining room. I didn't want to admit she was right. I wanted my restaurant back. I wanted the tables, the regulars, Luis bringing wine, Carmen running the line. I wanted what I'd lost, not some delivery-only substitute. But I also needed income, needed purpose, needed to cook. I called David. I'll try it. But I can't have staff yet. Can't risk bringing people back until I know this works. Start small. Just you. Build from there. October 2020. I signed the contract with David, both of us betting on something that felt like a poor replacement for what I'd lost. He'd found a ghost kitchen space in Sunset Park, a warehouse divided into 20 small kitchen units, restaurants with no dining rooms, just cooking stations for delivery. My unit was 12 feet by 15 feet. Industrial kitchen equipment, 3 burners, 1 oven, prep space, storage. No windows, no atmosphere. Just stainless steel and fluorescent lights and the constant smell of 20 different cuisines being cooked in adjacent boxes. This was what I'd come to. From a neighborhood institution to a numbered kitchen box in a warehouse. The first day, I stood in that space alone and cried. 20 years of Rossi's, the warmth and community and life, reduced to this sterile box. But I unpacked my knives, the ones I'd used since culinary school, and I started cooking. We launched Rossi's Kitchen on Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub in mid-October. Simple menu, 8 items. The classics. Pasta alla Genovese, chicken parm, braciole, eggplant rollatini. Angela handled the apps and ordering systems from home. I cooked everything myself. Day 1, 3 orders. Day 2, 5 orders. Day 3, 7 orders. It was humiliating. At the real restaurant, we'd done 70 dinners on a slow Tuesday. Now I was celebrating 7 delivery orders like it was an achievement. But Angela kept reminding me. Different business model, different scale, lower overhead. 7 orders at $30 average, minus delivery fees and costs. We were making money. Not much, but positive. That was more than the last months of the restaurant. Week 2, we averaged 12 orders a day. Week 3, 18. Week 4, 23. The algorithm was learning us, pushing us to more people. Reviews started coming in. OMG, this is the Genovese from Rossi's. I thought it was gone forever. Best Italian delivery I've had since lockdown started. This tastes like an actual restaurant, not delivery food. November 2020. We were doing 30 orders a day consistently. I was cooking alone, 12 hours a day, pumping out pasta and chicken parm in a warehouse box. My body hurt. I was exhausted. But we were profitable. Barely, but real. David came by one day to check on things. Marco, you need help. You're going to kill yourself working like this. I can't afford to bring anyone back yet." "Yes, you can. The numbers support one employee. Who do you want?" "Carmen." The answer was immediate. Carmen, who'd been with me 17 years, who'd learned every station, who knew my recipes like his own. Carmen, who'd been on unemployment since March, whose 3 kids I'd watched grow up. I called him that night. "Carmen, I know it's not what it was. I know it's just a kitchen box and delivery. But I need you. Can you come back?" "Chef, I'll be there tomorrow." Having Carmen back changed everything. Not just the workload, though that was huge, but the energy, the camaraderie, someone who understood the recipes, the standards, the soul that went into the food even if nobody saw us make it. "This is weird, Chef," Carmen said the first day, looking around the small kitchen box. "But the food tastes the same." That's what matters. December 2020, 9 months since lockdown. We were doing 45 orders a day. I'd brought back Maria for prep work 3 days a week. The ghost kitchen was working. Not glamorous, not what I'd wanted, but working. Then David called with another idea. "I've been tracking the data. 80% of your orders are the Genovese and the chicken parm. What if we created a second virtual brand, same kitchen, but focused entirely on those 2 items? Market it differently, capture different algorithm searches." Virtual brands. Ghost kitchens were creating multiple restaurant identities from one kitchen. You could be an Italian place, a burger joint, and a sushi bar all from the same space, just different menus on different apps. "That feels like lying," I said. "It's marketing, and it works." Ghost kitchens are doing 3 to 4 virtual brands per kitchen. You're leaving money on the table. We created Nonno's Pasta House in January 2021. Same kitchen, same food, but a brand focused entirely on pasta. The algorithm treated it as a different restaurant, showed it to different people. Our order volume jumped to 70 a day between both brands. I'd gone from hating the ghost kitchen concept to running 2 virtual restaurants. The food was the same, my grandfather's recipes. But everything else about restaurant business had changed. February 2021, almost a year since lockdown. We were doing 90 orders a day, had 4 staff back, including Luis, who'd taken a job doing delivery logistics and coordination. It wasn't traditional restaurant work, but it was food industry work with people I trusted. Angela and I sat down with our accountant to review where we stood. The ghost kitchen had been operating 5 months. "You're profitable," she said. "Not rich, but solidly profitable. You've covered your operating costs, paid your staff, and you've got positive cash flow of about $6,000 a month. At this rate, you could have the Rossi's debt paid off in 3 years. 3 years felt like forever, but it also felt like possibility. 5 months ago, I'd been drowning. Now I was swimming, slowly, but moving forward. Then COVID restrictions started lifting. March 2021, restaurants could reopen at limited capacity. Friends in the industry were scrambling to rehire staff, reopen dining rooms, get back to normal. I got calls. "Marco, when are you reopening Rossi's? The neighborhood misses you." But Rossi's was gone. The space was leased to a coffee shop now. The equipment was sold. The restaurant I'd built was truly dead. "I'm doing ghost kitchen now," I'd say. "But when will you have a real restaurant again?" That question haunted me. Was I going to be a warehouse chef forever? Was this success or just survival? Had I given up on real restaurants? David and I had the conversation in April 2021. We're profitable. We could expand. Open more ghost kitchen units, scale up, become a real business. Or we could try to open a small dining space. What do you want? What did I want? I'd spent a year grieving Rossi's, learning to let it go, building something different that actually worked. Going back to a traditional restaurant felt like trying to resurrect something that had already died. "I don't want to replace Rossi's," I said finally. "But I miss the connection. The ghost kitchen feeds people, but I never see them. I never hear their reactions. It's just boxes going out the door. What if we did both? Keep the ghost kitchen for volume and steady income, but open a very small dining space. Maybe 20 seats. Intimate. Limited menu. The best of both models. I thought about it for weeks. Then in May 2021, we found a space. A former coffee shop in Carroll Gardens, 500 square feet, max capacity 28 people. Rent was $2,300 a month, a third of what old Rossi's had cost. We called it Nonno's Table. Open Thursday through Sunday, dinner only, one seating at 6:30, one at 9. Reservations required. Limited menu, 5 entrees, the greatest hits. Meanwhile, the ghost kitchen operated Monday through Sunday, lunch and dinner, different model. It took 2 months to build out. We opened in August 2021. The first night, 18 people. 3 of them had been Rossi's regulars. Mrs. Chen was there, crying again, saying she never thought she'd eat my Genovese in a dining room again. It's not Rossi's, I told her honestly, but it's something. It's exactly what we need, she said. Nonno's Table wasn't Rossi's. It was smaller, quieter, more intimate. We weren't trying to do 70 covers. We did 25 per service, 50 people a night, 4 nights a week. Quality over volume. Experience over efficiency. And it worked differently. No walk-ins, no bar, no waiting for tables. You had a reservation, you came, you ate an incredible meal, you left. The ghost kitchen handled the volume. Nonno's Table handled the soul. September 2021, 18 months since Rossi's closed. I was running 2 businesses, employing 8 people, making enough to pay down debt and save money. It wasn't what I'd had. It was something new, something that fit the changed world. David and I were reviewing numbers one afternoon. "You know what's crazy?" he said. "You're making more money now than the last year of Rossi's." "That can't be right." He showed me the spreadsheet. He was right. The ghost kitchen's volume plus Nonno's Table's premium pricing, lower overhead on both, less waste, more efficiency. The numbers were better. "The pandemic killed Rossi's," David said. "But it forced you to build something better suited to how people actually eat now. That's not failure. That's adaptation." I wanted to argue, but the numbers didn't lie. I'd been so focused on grieving what I'd lost that I hadn't fully appreciated what I'd built. Not a replacement. Something new. October 2021. Carmen and I were prepping in the ghost kitchen before heading to Nonno's Table for dinner service. He'd been quiet lately, and I finally asked what was on his mind. "Chef, when Rossi's closed, I thought my career was over. I'm 40, high school dropout, only skill is cooking Italian food. Who was going to hire me?" He paused, chopping onions. "But this, the ghost kitchen and Nonno's, it's different but it's good. We're cooking good food, feeding people, making money. I got my kids back on health insurance. It's not what it was, but it's something real." That's when I realized we weren't just surviving. We were building. Different, but building. November 2021. Thanksgiving. 2 years since the last normal Thanksgiving before the pandemic. Angela and I hosted dinner at our house. Invited some of the staff, some regulars from the old days. Luis came. Carmen brought his family. Mrs. Chen was there. David Chen, whose investment and idea had saved me. Tony, my son, stood up to make a toast. 2 years ago, we thought Dad's career was over. We watched him lose something he'd built for 20 years, watched him fall apart. But he got back up, built something new. I'm proud of him, not for having a restaurant, but for not giving up when everything fell apart. I tried not to cry. Failed. December 2021. We'd made it through another year. Rossi's had been gone 18 months. The ghost kitchen was thriving. 2 virtual brands, 100 orders a day. Nonno's Table was booked solid 6 weeks out. We'd paid off $40,000 in debt. Had actual savings again. I was 54 now. 2 years older than when the pandemic started. 2 years that had taken 20 years of work, ground it to dust, and forced me to rebuild from nothing. But I had rebuilt. Different, yes. Smaller in some ways, smarter in others. Not the same, but real. January 2022. A reporter from a local food blog wanted to interview me. The comeback story, they called it. Famous Brooklyn restaurant owner adapts to pandemic, builds ghost kitchen empire. Empire was generous, but they weren't wrong about the comeback. "Do you miss Rossi's?" she asked. "Every day," I said honestly. But missing something and trying to resurrect it are different things. Rossi's belonged to a different time. The world changed. I had to change with it, or disappear. What would you tell other restaurant owners who lost everything? I thought about that question. Thought about the dark months after closing. The depression, the debt, the identity crisis. Thought about David's call, the ghost kitchen, the slow rebuild. "The restaurant you lost is gone," I said. "You can grieve it, and you should. But at some point, you have to stop trying to get back what you lost and start building what comes next. It won't be the same. It might be better, might be worse, but it'll be something. And something is better than nothing." The article came out in February 2022. Got shared around restaurant industry groups, pandemic recovery forums. I got messages from other restaurant owners who'd closed, asking how we'd done it, if ghost kitchens were really viable, if it was worth trying to rebuild. I answered every message. Because I remembered what it felt like to be drowning, to think it was over, to not know if starting over was possible at 52. March 2022. 2 years since lockdown. 2 years since the governor's press conference that ended Rossi's. 2 years of loss, grief, adaptation, and slow rebuilding. Nono's Table had a 2-month wait list. The ghost kitchen was doing 120 orders a day. We'd hired back 11 of the original Rossi's staff across both operations. We'd paid off $75,000 of the debt. We were profitable, stable, growing. And then something unexpected happened. A message from a guy named James Morrison, who owned a small restaurant group in Manhattan. "Marco, I've been following your story. The ghost kitchen model you've built is impressive. I'm interested in scaling it. Would you be open to a conversation about franchising your virtual brands? I think we could take Rossi's Kitchen and Nono's Pasta House to 20 locations in New York. You'd maintain creative control of recipes and standards. We'd handle the expansion and operations. Interested?" 20 locations. My grandfather's recipes, my food, scaled to a level I'd never imagined at the old restaurant. Not through traditional expansion, but through the ghost kitchen model that had saved me. Angela and I talked about it for weeks. David ran the numbers. It was real, viable, potentially life-changing financially. But it also meant letting go even more. Letting other kitchens, other chefs, make my family's food. Could I do that? Could I scale something that had always been personal, intimate, mine? I met James Morrison at Nono's Table in April 2022. He was younger than me, maybe 40, sharp suit, the kind of restaurant group operator who talked in metrics and scalability. Everything about him was the opposite of how I'd run Rossi's. "Marco, I've studied your model," he said over coffee before service. "What you've built is brilliant. Most restaurant owners tried to go back to the old model when restrictions lifted. You adapted. Ghost kitchens for volume and efficiency, small dining space for brand and connection. It's the future of the industry." "It wasn't brilliant," I said. "It was survival." I didn't choose this model. The pandemic forced it on me. Best innovations come from necessity. Here's what I'm proposing. We franchise Rossi's Kitchen and Nono's Pasta House as ghost kitchen brands. I have relationships with kitchen space operators in Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, even New Jersey. We could be in 20 locations within 18 months. You'd maintain recipe control, train the chefs, approve every location. We handle real estate, Operations, marketing. Revenue split is 70 to 30, our favor. But you're getting 70% of nothing right now from those markets. 20 locations. I tried to imagine it. My grandfather's Genovese being made in kitchens I'd never seen, by chefs I'd never met, in neighborhoods I'd never visited. It felt wrong. Personal recipes weren't meant to be franchised like fast food. But James showed me the projections. Conservative estimates had each location doing 80 orders a day. 20 locations, 1,600 orders daily. Even with my smaller revenue share, the numbers were staggering. More than I'd ever made at Rossi's. More than I was making now by a factor of 10. I need time, I told him. Take a month. But understand, if you don't do this, someone else will. Ghost kitchen franchising is exploding. Your recipes deserve to be part of that growth, or they'll get lost in the noise. I spent that month wrestling with the decision. Talked to Angela, to Carmen, to my dad in Florida. Everyone had different opinions. Angela was practical. We've rebuilt once. This could set us up for life. Pay off all the debt, save for retirement, leave something for the kids. We're not 25 anymore, Marco. We need to think about security. Carmen was hesitant. Chef, can you really teach someone else to make the Genovese? That's your grandfather's recipe. That's soul food. Can that be franchised? My dad surprised me. Your grandfather would have done it. You know why? Because he came to America to build something bigger than what he left. He didn't stay small to stay pure. He adapted. He grew. This is the same thing, just a different century. I thought about what the pandemic had taught me. That holding on to the past gets you killed. That adaptation is survival. That what you build has to fit the world you're in, not the world you wish existed. In May 2022, I signed the franchise agreement with James Morrison. 20 ghost kitchen locations over 18 months. I'd train the chefs personally, approve every location, maintain complete control over recipes and standards. But I'd be scaling my family's food in a way my grandfather never imagined. The first location opened in Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen in July 2022. A kitchen box just like mine in Sunset Park, but in a different warehouse. I spent 2 weeks training the chef, a guy named Kevin who'd worked in Italian restaurants for 15 years, but never made authentic Neapolitan Genovese. The onions have to cook for 5 hours minimum, I told him, standing over his pot. You can't rush this. If you rush it, it's just onions. If you're patient, it becomes something else. Kevin was good, patient, detail-oriented, respected the recipes. By the end of 2 weeks, his Genovese was 95% as good as mine. Not perfect, but honest. That had to be enough. The Hell's Kitchen location launched with both our virtual brands. Day 1, 43 orders. By week 3, 75 orders daily. It was working. August through December 2022, we opened 6 more locations. Each one, I spent 2 weeks training chefs, teaching my grandfather's recipes, making sure they understood it wasn't about speed or shortcuts. It was about respect for the food. Some chefs got it immediately. Others struggled with the patience required, the old world techniques. We let 2 go who couldn't maintain standards. Found better people. The quality had to be there, or the whole thing would collapse. By January 2023, 7 locations were operational. We were doing 600 orders a day across all kitchens. The revenue was incredible. My share, after all splits and costs, was running $32,000 a month. More than I'd made in a year at some points in the old Rossi's days. Angela and I paid off the remaining debt in February 2023. All of it. The equipment loans, the line of credit, everything. For the first time since the pandemic, we were debt-free. The weight I'd carried for 3 years lifted. But something else was happening. The franchise was growing beyond my control. James wanted to open 15 more locations faster than planned. Investors were excited. The ghost kitchen model with authentic recipes was trending. Food bloggers were writing about us. I was becoming a brand instead of a chef. March 2023, I was training chef number 12 at a new location in Astoria. Young guy, maybe 26, eager, talented. He was making the Genovese while I watched. My grandmother was from Naples, he told me. This recipe, the way you're teaching it, it's exactly how she made it. I thought that kind of cooking was dying out. It was, I said. Maybe this is how it survives. Not in one restaurant, but in 20 kitchens, taught to 20 chefs who'll teach it to others. Maybe that's the new way to preserve tradition. April 2023, 3 years since Rossi's closed. We had 14 ghost kitchen locations operational. We were doing over 1,000 orders a day. I'd trained 18 chefs, employed indirectly over 60 people across all locations. More than triple the staff I'd had at the original restaurant. Nonno's table was still running, still my sanctuary. 4 nights a week, 25 people per service, the intimate connection I needed. But my real impact was through the ghost kitchens I'd never have chosen, but had learned to embrace. James called in May with another proposal. Marco, we've been approached by a meal kit company. They want to license your recipes for at-home pasta kits. Your Genovese, your Sunday gravy, your braciole. You'd quality control the sauces, they'd handle production and distribution. Another revenue stream. I said yes. Because I'd learned that protecting tradition by keeping it small just lets it die. Scaling it, even imperfectly, keeps it alive. June 2023. The meal kits launched. Appeared in specialty grocery stores across New York. Nonno's authentic Neapolitan pasta kits. My grandfather's face on the package, from that photo taken in Naples in 1952. People buying his recipes in stores, making them at home, connecting to that tradition, even if they'd never sit in a restaurant. It felt strange. It felt right. It felt like adaptation. July brought an invitation I never expected. A conference for restaurant owners who'd survived the pandemic. They wanted me to speak about rebuilding, share what I'd learned, give hope to people still struggling. I stood on that stage in front of 200 restaurant operators, many of them my age or older, many of them still trying to figure out how to recover what they'd lost. 3 years ago, I lost everything, I started. 20 years building a restaurant, gone in 3 months. I spent 6 months after that wanting to die. Couldn't see a future. Couldn't imagine starting over at 52. What saved me wasn't trying to rebuild what I'd lost. It was accepting that the old model was dead and building something different. Ghost kitchens weren't my first choice. They were my only choice. But they worked because I stopped trying to resurrect the past and started creating a future. The pandemic didn't just kill restaurants. It killed a way of doing business that didn't work anymore. High overhead, low margins, inflexible models. What's emerging is leaner, more adaptable, more resilient. That's not a tragedy. That's evolution. After the talk, dozens of restaurant owners approached me, shared their stories. Some had found new models like I had. Others were still stuck, trying to go back to 2019, struggling because 2019 was gone. One woman, probably 60, had owned a French restaurant in Manhattan for 30 years. Closed during the pandemic, been trying to reopen for 2 years. I can't do what you did, she said. I'm too old. I don't understand ghost kitchens or delivery apps or virtual brands. I just want my restaurant back. Then you'll keep losing, I said, not unkindly. Because that restaurant doesn't exist anymore. The world changed. You can change with it, or you can stay stuck in grief. I chose change because the alternative was giving up entirely. She cried. I gave her my number, told her to call if she wanted help figuring out a new path. August 2023. We opened location number 18. The ghost kitchen empire was approaching James's original projection of 20 locations. My monthly income was running $48,000. Angela had quit her part-time job and was helping me manage the franchise operations full-time. We bought a small house upstate. Nothing fancy, but ours. First home we'd owned outright. Felt like security I hadn't had since before the pandemic. Carmen was now my director of training, traveling to new locations with me, helping train new chefs. He'd gone from line cook to management because the new model created different opportunities. "Chef, you remember those dark days?" Carmen asked me one night after training. "When we thought it was all over?" I was on unemployment, my kids asking when I'd work again. Now I'm making more money than I ever did at Rossi's, teaching other chefs, traveling. It's crazy how things work out. "Only because we adapted," I said. "We could have stayed stuck." A lot of people did. September 2023. Tony, my son, graduated from culinary school. He'd been inspired by watching me rebuild, decided to pursue cooking professionally. He asked to join the business. "I don't want to just work for you," he said. "I want to learn what you learned. How to build something, how to lose it, how to build again." That's the real education. I brought him on as an apprentice chef, rotating through locations, learning the operation from the ground up. Watching him work with my grandfather's recipes, the third generation carrying forward tradition through this strange new model, felt like continuity I hadn't expected. October 2023, we opened Location 20. The original goal: 20 ghost kitchens across New York, cooking my grandfather's recipes, feeding thousands of people daily. From one restaurant to 20 virtual locations in 18 months. James wanted to keep expanding. Philadelphia, Boston, D.C. But I needed to pause, make sure quality was maintained, that we weren't growing too fast. I'd learned that lesson from Rossi's. Sustainable was better than spectacular. November 2023. Thanksgiving again. 4 years since the last normal Thanksgiving before COVID. Angela and I hosted at our new house upstate. Invited the core team, the people who'd been there through everything. Carmen brought his family, Maria, Luis, David Chen, whose investment and belief had started this, James Morrison, the franchise partner, some of the new chefs from various locations, Tony and Sophia. My dad flew up again. We cooked together, all of us, making enough food for 30 people. The Genovese, the Sunday gravy, the braciole. My grandfather's recipes, made by 3 generations of family and the extended family we'd built through this business. Before dinner, David asked me to say something. 4 years ago, I thought my life's work was over, I said. Rossi's closed, 20 years gone, and I was 52 years old with no idea how to start over. What I learned was that sometimes losing everything is the only way to build something better. Rossi's was one restaurant serving maybe 100 people a night when we were busy. Now we have 20 locations serving over 1,000 people daily. The recipes are the same. The soul is the same. But the model evolved. That's not betraying tradition. That's ensuring tradition survives. I'm grateful for what I lost because it forced me to adapt. And I'm grateful for everyone here who adapted with me, who believed in building something new instead of grieving something gone. We ate, we laughed, we shared stories. It felt like family in a way Rossi's staff dinners had, but different, broader, more resilient. December 2023. The meal kit line expanded to national distribution. My grandfather's face in grocery stores across America. People in Iowa and Texas and Oregon making authentic Neapolitan pasta using recipes that had survived war, immigration, a pandemic, and now lived on in a form nobody could have predicted. I got emails from customers. "This tastes like my childhood. My Italian grandmother would be proud. Thank you for keeping real cooking alive." That's when I understood. The pandemic hadn't killed my restaurant. It had killed one expression of my grandfather's legacy. What I'd built afterward was another expression, one that reached more people, employed more chefs, preserved tradition through adaptation rather than preservation. January 2024. almost 4 years since the pandemic started. I was 56 years old. Rossi's had been gone for 3.5 years. The Ghost Kitchen franchise was thriving. Nono's Table had a 3-month wait list. The meal kits were in 800 stores nationwide. I called my dad. "Pop, remember when I called you in May 2020, said I had to close the restaurant? You told me 20 years was an accomplishment, that the pandemic wasn't my fault." "I remember. You were right. But it was also wrong. Because 20 years at Rossi's was just the beginning. What I've built since, that's the real accomplishment. Losing everything forced me to become better than I was." My dad was quiet a moment. "Your grandfather would be proud. Not of the success, though he'd love that, but of the resilience. He survived a war, built a business in a new country with nothing. You survived a pandemic, built something new from nothing. That's the real family tradition. Resilience." February 2024. A documentary crew contacted me. They were making a film about restaurants that survived COVID, wanted to feature my story. I agreed, but only if they included other restaurant owners, showed different paths to survival. During filming, they asked, "Do you ever wish you still had the original Rossi's?" "Every day," I said honestly. "I miss the community, the regulars, the feeling of that dining room full. But missing something and needing it back are different. Rossi's belonged to a different time. What I have now belongs to this time. And this is the time I'm living in." March 2024. 4 years since lockdown. 4 years since Governor Cuomo's press conference that ended Rossi's. 4 years since I thought my life was over at 52. The franchise was at 23 locations now, despite my attempt to pause at 20. James kept finding opportunities I couldn't say no to. We were approaching 1,500 orders daily. Revenue that seemed impossible 4 years ago was now routine. I'd employed or trained over 80 people across all operations. Created opportunities that wouldn't have existed if Rossi's had survived. The Ghost Kitchen model, the virtual brands, the meal kits, they'd created more jobs than the original restaurant ever had. But more than that, I'd learned something about loss and rebuilding, about identity and adaptation, about the difference between preserving the past and honoring it while building a future. I was no longer Marco, owner of Rossi's. I was Marco, who'd lost everything and built something different. Something that reached more people, employed more chefs, preserved tradition through innovation rather than nostalgia. April 2024. I visited the old Rossi's space on Smith Street. It was still a coffee shop. I stood outside, looking through the window at the space that had been my life for 20 years. The dining room was unrecognizable, but if I closed my eyes, I could still hear it. The laughter, the clinking glasses, Luis taking orders, Carmen calling out tickets. I didn't cry. I smiled, because that place had been beautiful. And it was gone. And what I'd built afterward was beautiful too, in a different way. Later that week, I got a message from the woman who'd approached me after the conference speech. The one who'd owned the French restaurant, who'd said she was too old to adapt. "Marco, I wanted to tell you. I took your advice. Closed the old restaurant officially. Started a ghost kitchen with my signature dishes. First month, 35 orders a day. It's not what it was, but it's something, and something is better than nothing. Thank you for showing me that was possible." That message meant more than any revenue report or franchise expansion. May 2024. Tony announced he wanted to open his own concept. Not Italian, but modern American with Italian influences. His own recipes, his own vision. Using what he'd learned from watching me build and rebuild, but creating something that was his. "The best thing you taught me wasn't cooking," he told me. "It was that losing everything doesn't mean it's over. It means you get to build something new. I want to build something that's mine." I helped him write his business plan. Ghost kitchen model, of course. Virtual brands to start. Small dining space if it worked. The new model that made sense for his generation. The pandemic had killed my restaurant, but it had taught my son how to build one for a changed world. June 2024, I stood in the Sunset Park ghost kitchen where this had all started. The original 12 by 15-foot box that had felt like a prison 4 years ago now felt like the foundation of everything. Carmen was training 2 new chefs. Maria was prepping. The familiar sounds of cooking, the smell of onions braising for the Genovese. 4 years ago, I'd stood in this space and cried, thinking I'd lost everything. Now I stood here and realized I'd found something different. Not better or worse than what I'd lost. Just different. And different was okay. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo I kept. The last night at Rossi's, June 30th, 2020. The outdoor tables, the staff, the regulars, my family. The end of one chapter. Then I looked around at this kitchen, at Carmen teaching my grandfather's recipes to chefs who'd carry them to locations across New York, at the orders streaming in on the tablets, at the business I'd built from the ashes of what I'd lost. "You doing okay, Chef?" Carmen asked. "Yeah," I said. "I'm doing okay." And I was. Not despite what I'd lost. Because of what I'd learned from losing it. The pandemic killed my restaurant. 20 years of work gone. But I didn't give up. I adapted. I evolved. I built something that fit the new world instead of mourning the old one. That's the real lesson. Not that you can rebuild exactly what you lost, but that you can build something new if you're willing to let go of what's gone and embrace what's possible. Rossi's is dead. Long live Rossi's kitchen. Long live Nano's table. Long live my grandfather's recipes, living on in ways he never imagined and I never planned. The pandemic taught me that survival isn't about preserving the past. It's about adapting to the present while honoring what came before. And that's exactly what I did.